Hello. I'm gonna sit here and talk to myself for a few minutes while everyone joins. It's always that awkward point in the evening where I kind of don't know if you're in some sort of weird chamber where only you can hear yourself and there's no one actually listening, and all you're relying on is a little digit in the number that's slowly ticking up. Now there's 23 people listening to me ramble on to myself. Welcome. Sit down, take a seat. Go for a quick toilet break if you haven't already, if you're unprepared. We're going to get started in about a minute. If you have been to the toilet, make sure you got your whiskey glass ready. Make sure you got your whiskey me pouch ready. And we will get cracking very shortly. So before I introduce tonight's guest, who is a good friend of mine, we're going to have a bit of fun, I think. Judging by the shirt he's wearing, we're definitely going to have a bit of fun. I've got a couple of bits of housekeeping to do. Wanted to give you guys a sneak peek into the happenings or the behind the scenes goings on at Whiskey Me, because we've got some really cool announcements coming up. So keep an eye on your emails, because we're going to keep you updated that way. Keep an eye on social media. But what you are going to see as of next month is our new branding and our new website, and most exciting of all, our new pouches. And I am going to give you guys a really quick sneak peek of this. I know what no one else in the company has actually approved me doing this. I just decided I was going to do it about half an hour ago, so probably going to get fired. This might be the last live tasting I do. But just wanted to show you where we're coming from and what we've got coming up, because as of next month, we're going to be launching a new product, which is our World Whiskey subscription. And we're actually going to be sending all of our existing members, a free pouch of World Whiskey to kick things off, just so you get an idea of what it's going to look like. And I'm going to show you now what the World Whiskey pouch looks like. The Scotch Whiskey pouch, which you currently is also going to be changing, and as is our website and our tasting cards and even our mailing envelopes, our social media, everything. So look, have a little peek at this. And there you go. I'm not going to leave it on there for very long, but that is the new World Whiskey pouch right there, and it's gone. So let us know what you think of that. You'll be getting those pouches from next month onwards, and the subscriptions will be going live from next month as well. It's the same price as Scotch malt whiskey, and it's going to be featuring whiskies from all over the world: rye, bourbons, malt whiskies, blended whiskies, a little bit of everything. So back to tonight, and back to this month's dram, which of course is Dalwhinnie Distillers Edition. I am super excited to taste this one. Dalwhinnie has been a kind of favorite of mine. It's sort of like everyone's third favorite dram. I could put it that way. You know, it's like I've never met anyone who doesn't like Dalwhinnie, but no one really sort of sings and celebrates it that much either. It's an underrepresented whiskey. Between myself and our special guest tonight, we're going to do our best to change that. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome to the live stream my good friend, Ervin Trykowski, aka Scotch Boy. Hello, mate.
Hey, how exciting. I think this is going to be the last one ever because you fired yourself.
Possibly, yeah. Well, that and whatever you or I say during this conversation is not permitted to be streamed on YouTube. We just won't be allowed to do it anymore.
Best behavior from my end.
Yeah, exactly. This is good. I love it when I get friends on this, because it's a good excuse to have a natter. It would be a bit awkward if I was like, hey, Irv, do you want to just catch up for a video call for 45 minutes on a random night? But because we've got this sort of purpose of tasting whiskey, it kind of makes everything okay.
It's 2 birds, 1 stone, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. So do you want to start by telling us a little bit about what you do, what your job is, and why you are appropriate for a Dalwhinnie tasting?
Appropriate.
You spent most of your life being told you're inappropriate, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So my name's Ervin Trykowski. I'm Diageo's Global New Age Scotch Whisky Ambassador. So pre everything that's going on, I would travel around the world and educate people on Scotch whisky. And now I literally sit here and talk at my computer to people all over the world. New Age essentially means that I try and put Scotch whisky in environments that it doesn't traditionally exist in, try and change perceptions and kind of bring it into the modern a bit, which is pretty cool. And like you, obviously you know this, but for everyone on here, the same kind of background as you, come from a bartending background, which up until a few years ago was quite unique for a malt whiskey ambassador. But luckily nowadays it is fairly common practice. So yeah, obviously today this is actually probably the first time anyone's let me do like a proper real whiskey tasting in a while. Usually it's go make cocktails for some event or something. So this is nice. Thanks for inviting me, man.
That's good. But you're right. To your point about malt whiskey and bartenders, it's interesting because over the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, it's amazing how malt whiskey has infiltrated bars, and especially cocktail bars. And now, as you say, bartenders are infiltrating whiskey. I mean, I'm a former bartender, you're a former bartender, and here we are conducting a whiskey tasting. Like, talk about imposter syndrome, right?
It's that old school challenge that it's like the flavor compound, the flavors that you find in malt whiskey are too challenging to mix, and it's just the reality is that it's actually like it's giving you everything that you need to construct a well-made story and a well kind of big poppy inspired drink. I mean, malt whiskey, all the flavors jump out at you. So why would you put it with mad food pairings, pair it with music, or make cocktails with it? It's kind of, yeah. Unfortunately, now that's the regular, which is ace.
It's amazing to think because, I mean, only 10, 15 years ago, certainly 20 years ago, the idea of mixing malt whiskey was just sacrilege. You know, it's you even the brands, the brand ambassadors for what they were at the time, the salespeople, everyone would have been like, "What the hell are you doing putting that into a cocktail? It's better than that." But I guess it's a sort of testament to cocktails themselves and the way that they have leveled up, that it's now okay to be putting malt whiskey into drinks. And like you say, there's such an amazing spectrum of flavor to be found in there. And, we don't need to tell the people that tune into this and that subscribe to Whiskey Me that the flavor of malt whiskey is so diverse. There's something new to be found in all these different drams. And from a bartender's perspective, that's just amazing.
Yeah, it's everything. It's like the guest nowadays that walks into bars want the new flavors, new experiences. They want to hear new stories, and single malt whiskey is just this kind of only slightly explored territory in that. So for the world's great bartenders, it is now becoming that kind of go-to, and also the world's great home bartenders, which I'm sure we've got on here today.
All the best ones in the world are listening right now. Right. So speaking about unexplored territories, let's talk a little bit about Dalwhinnie, which is, I think it's joint. Is it joint highest distillery in Scotland, or very nearly the highest distillery in Scotland?
There's that constant argument over which one's taller. I'm not sure if one keeps growing or what's going on. But yeah, there is another distillery in Scotland, and I think it's 2 feet in it.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's like climb up a ladder or get on the roof, right, and you're on top of the highest distillery in Scotland. So we when I called you up and asked you to come on here, I did it because I know that you really know your stuff when it comes to whiskey, and not just like 1 or 2 distilleries, but all the distilleries in Scotland, even the ones that you don't work for. And Dalwhinnie is part of Diageo's stable of whiskies, but it's a well-known whiskey as well. It's part of the classic malts range. It's a whiskey that you often see in pubs. Like it's a really great fallback whiskey in places that perhaps don't have a great range. Like, cool, they got Dalwhinnie, thank God for that, But it's not a whiskey that's talked about much by Diageo. It's not promoted that much. There's no one out there flying the flag for Dalwhinnie. Otherwise, they would probably be sat where you are. Well, maybe not in your house. That'd be a bit weird. But there isn't anyone, so we had to call on you. It's a strange thing, right, that Dalwhinnie doesn't get a bit more attention, but perhaps it just doesn't need it, right?
It's mad because it's everywhere and it's nowhere. Like, it's like you can walk into a bar and it's a great safety malt. It's one of, like, when I first started working behind bars, it was like one of the whiskies that I kind of gravitated.
How many whiskies had you had?
Yeah, I can't do that. But no, I think it's like, it was because the flavor profile is so accessible, and because it's perceived to have that kind of very kind of easygoing, accessible thing, that it was like a go-to to kind of practice with and to experiment with. And when you're trying to find your way into the world of malt whiskey, it is a pretty safe space to do that. And But yeah, and it's weird as well. Even like if you think about the location of it, like everyone's past it.
Yeah.
Right? You've been to Scotland and visited the distillery. You've gone past it.
Yeah, because it's right on a main road, right?
Yeah. It's right on the main road up towards Speyside, up to the kind of Highlands and the East Coast. Like you're going to pass it, and like you say to people, "Did you go?" And it's like, "No, I was going to X, Y, or Z," and it's just like, wait a minute. Like, and the thing is, it's such a like picture postcard perfect distillery that it's amazing that more people don't go and don't love it. But hopefully, we'll change some of this today.
Yeah,
I've actually seen somebody, Phil here in the comments has just literally said,
drove past it on Sunday. Yeah.
Phil, did you go?
Yeah, he didn't stop. He said he drove past it. Blatantly didn't stop. But this is the thing. It's probably has more. It's probably visible to more people than any other distillery in Scotland because of the quantity of traffic that goes past it. And yet, I expect it gets a fair few visitors as well. Probably more than some, but probably not as many as it should.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it versus Talisker, like they're both mega remote, and I imagine that I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I reckon way more people go to Talisker, which is literally like 6 hours from anything you can call civilization.
Yeah, I mean that's really remote, isn't it? Well, we were saying earlier, it's like Dalwhinnie is super remote. And if it weren't for the fact that there's the rail line and the road going past it, it would be really remote because there's really nothing else there, right? I mean, it's stuck in the middle of the Highlands with nothing else around it.
Yeah, but then it's kind of like like when you're there. I think it's more the feeling of the place. Like it feels like there's nothing there, and you are a good way from other kind of things where there are access to shops, delicious restaurants, amazing bars. But also, when you look at it on the map, it's pretty central.
Yeah, it's right in the middle, yeah.
And which is part of the reason why it is there in the first place. It's like we've not like plonked a distillery on the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean? It does kind of make sense on the map, but I think it's just the feeling of the place. Like it does feel massively remote.
The name Dalwhinnie means the meeting place, right? Which you're like, who the hell was meeting on the top of this mountain, like in the Highlands?
Yeah, it's like the plane of meetings or the meeting place, which is hilarious. I literally couldn't think of a worse place to meet anyone nowadays. Phone signal is weak. Coffee shops are sparse. You can't even get an FM radio station. And also the weather is pretty intolerable. Like it is an incredibly Scottish place. Like, you know what I mean? It's incredibly cold and bleak, and it's amazing to look at. But yeah, I mean
I believe it is the coldest settlement in the UK. So the average temperature around the year is 6 degrees Celsius, which that's a cold day, but that's just normal for someone who lives near Dalwhinnie. But it's funny, isn't it? I mean, no mobile phone signal, no shops, which wouldn't really have been considerations. Like when was it built? 1890s, was it?
1898. I mean, yeah, I guess meeting place is very much harken back to there. It would have been a key meeting place for cattle drovers. They would have stopped their journey there between the Highlands, coming from places like Inverness, and that would have been kind of a stopping point before they continued their journey, or met someone from the Central Belt to do their trade. And I guess, I mean, it has had quite a few famous visitors at this time, which I did some research on for this, which is actually really cool. Like doing research I've actually had to work a little bit for a tasting for the first time. Cool, but I found this really cool thing in a book that we released for the centenary of the distillery, which is a brilliant quote. It's like, many Victorian distilleries were bravely sited, and then it says in inverted commas after it, madly located. Highest of all distilleries at 10,073 feet, and now home to the classic malts. Soft, full-bodied 15-year-old malt was no exceptions. Why on earth, you may think, continued the writer in his memorable epitaph, would you and anybody build a distillery in the desolate, wind-sliced, rain-lashed patch of Highland wilderness? So, fair enough.
Yeah, but it's not like it was an old, well, at least I don't think it was an old like smuggling operation, right? Or an illicit distillery. Because then you sort of like, right, I'll put this somewhere where no one's going to bother going or want to go. But this was built as a commercial operation from the start, right? So it does seem a strange place.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, in that kind of late Victorian period, it's got that classic kind of cost of £10,000, and which seems to be going rate. You know what I mean? Like it was at Cardiff when the Walkers bought it, was about the kind of same price. But yeah, it was set up to do exactly that. And yeah, I guess it's kind of I mean, great single malts are a product of place, and that is kind of quite a central location when you think of it in Victorian times. And obviously there was the newly built Highland Railway line, which would have helped get casks down to its customers right up until the late 60s, which is cool. That's when it was moved onto the roads. And if you think about it in that sense, what we now think of is the front is actually the back. Right?
Yeah, because the rail's on one side of it and the road's on the other, right? So the front of the distillery, the proper front, faces the rail line where they would load the casks on, and now what we think is the front is actually the back because we're passing it on the road.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, anyone who's done the kind of the train up north from Perth to Inverness and further up north will have seen the proper front of the distillery, which is absolutely stunning. It's really cool. It's not until I remember I did it recently and I was like, yeah, amazing, because it's not very often you drive up to the front of a distillery and you see worm tub. You know, they're usually tucked away at the back, and they've been made beautiful now, which helps.
Speaking of the front of the distillery, we have some video, don't we?
Yeah.
Would now be a good time for me to put that on, do you think?
Yeah.
All right, check this out, guys. See how technologically advanced we are. So you can talk over this maybe a little bit since you've been.
So I'm going to try and talk now, but it muted me when we first came on, so I hope you can still hear this. So again, this is the trip right up the road, the main road to the Highlands, the Central Highlands, over the Dromotter Summit, to one of Scotland's highest distilleries that we've talked about. As you can hear, it is a little bit windy up here. This was actually quite a calm day, and the whiskey that we produce here gets called the gentle malt whiskey. We've been doing it there since 1898, and today we're going to be tasting the awesome Distiller's edition. So if you have your pouch already, I'm sure a lot of you have, but crack it open and start tasting and nosing, and let us know what you're getting in the chat. Right there you have the worm tubs, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and we're also going to talk about the distillation process, but that'll just give you a feel for the area and how remote and how rugged it is, which definitely lends well to the style of new make we produce, probably more than the malt whiskey, which is two very, very, very different stories.
Yeah, go on, let's go into that. Because I'm interested to hear. I know we talked very briefly about this earlier, but go for it. Talk a little bit about the new make, if you would.
So the new make, the unmatured Scotch whisky, as soon as it comes off the still at Dalwhinnie, is super, super heavy. It's proper new make. It's big. It's oily. I hate this word, but it's sulphurous. It's like that minute you strike a match. I just don't think it's not a really positive way to describe whiskey. It doesn't make people think, oh, I quite fancy a sulphurous whiskey. But it does describe it the best. It's big and it's oily and it's chewy. It literally tastes like the style of new make that you would make in a place as remote and as rugged as this is. This appears, or it doesn't so much appear as is produced, because at Dalwhinnie, when we are running our stills, we run them hard and fast. Okay, this is as little copper contact as possible. Okay, we want it to be big and thick and texturous. This isn't what we do in Speyside, which is light and grassy, and you run the still gently. We then cool it down as quickly as possible. Okay, and this is done with worm tubs, and those big wooden vats that you see out the front of the distillery. Cool fact: that those the worm tubs are filled with melt that comes off of the mountain. So this creates a super effective worm tub on a cool day, and it really lends itself to those robust styles of new make that we want to produce. Now in summer, it gets to a balmy 50 degrees. 15 degrees rather.
15, yeah.
15, not 50. It's never been 50 there.
50 Fahrenheit, maybe.
And it does become a little bit harder to produce those styles of whiskey when it does get warm. And there has always been a lot of chat about, does Dalwhinnie produce better whiskey in the summer and the winter? And it's I've been assured not the case, but it's certainly easier to produce that style of whiskey there. And so much of single malt is a product of the place that it's from. Like, so we produce whiskey there because it's what we've always done, and it's what is easy to do. And it does feel like the right style of whiskey to produce in this barren, remote place.
The thing is, even if a distillery, and it could be Dalwhinnie, it could be any other, is producing slightly different whiskey summer compared to winter because of the temperature outside affecting the condensers in different ways, faster condensation because everything's cold, so be it. It gives you a more, broad range of stocks to blend with. And at the end of the day, if you're buying a 15-year-old whiskey, it's still going to be at least 15 years old. And it could be a mixture of casks, from different times in the year, or that little bit older, that all get mixed together, blended together to create that finished dram. So a little bit of diversity, I think, is probably a good thing.
Yeah, it's definitely something that is you want as many different colors to paint your palette with, to paint your painting with. It, you want access to all those different styles. You have to remember as well, this is a malt whiskey that is associated with a number of great blends. Like, it's at the heart of Buchanan's and Black and White, and that kind of style of whiskey is very much sought after for blenders, because it packs a real punch and leaves a real mark on a great blend, as well as being an incredible single malt.
Mm. Yeah, by the way, I'm tasting as we go, because the thing is, guys, when you got Ervin on with me, we're not going to get a time to kind of structure a tasting. We're going to run out of time as it is. So we're going to just taste as we go. And if you've got tasting notes that you want to share, then just pop it up in the chat and we'll bring some of those up as and when as we go. It's too delicious a whiskey to sort of sit there waiting to drink it. You guys have waited long enough as it is into the month. So enjoy it now, and we'll keep the chat going and you keep tasting.
JJ has asked, is this the 2020 release? Which is, the answer is yes. This is the distilled in 2005.
Yeah.
Do you want to show them around the warehouse?
Yeah, I can do that.
And I'll unmute myself straight away this time.
All right, I'm going to need a little minute.
That's all right. We've got apples and pears coming through from Simon, which is awesome. For me, this is super red fruit. It's got all that kind of fruit leather notes to it. It's kind of like, I always get that green note when you add a bit of water, and it's there in the background for me. But as soon as you have water, it really kind of pinks life. For me, it's those kind of citrus fruit orange marmalades. It's super rich. Okay, so here's the warehouse number 4. And if this were an episode of Cribs, this would be where the magic happens. Our new make, which is big, it's chewy, it's oily, it's got that kind of great sulfur quality, is put into oak casks, and over time it gets, when it gets warmer and colder, the casks interact with the barrel, softening this what is a pretty hard new make and turning it into that kind of gentle malt whiskey, which we now know and love. Now the casks are held, the casks that are held at Dalwhinnie, this process will happen immensely slowly as the temperature is so cold. The new make characteristics are softened, and then sweetness is added. In this warehouse, you'll see that we have a vast collection of hogsheads, predominantly American oak hogsheads and refill American oak hogsheads. These are what goes into our classic expression of the 15-year-old. So refill cask is something that's come from America. It's held bourbon before, and then we make it slightly bigger and turn it into a hogshead, and then it's held one other thing before it holds Dalwhinnie. Sometimes this is grain, sometimes it's another single malt. And then the jam that you have in your hand goes through a secondary. This one actually has a triple maturation, which I only learned about today.
I only learned about it 2 hours ago.
So the Distiller's Edition collection have this a secondary maturation in a cask that has been seasoned with a fortified wine. So this has been put into refill for 14 and a half, 15 years, and then it has been moved into a cask which has been heavily charred, seasoned with Oloroso, and then left for 3 months. It was then put through that maturation again, which is we can kind of speculate to why that's been done, but it
needed to go through it again, right? Yeah, I mean, that's probably the obvious explanation.
So again, we are our blenders are pulling things together on the flavor profile that they are trying to achieve. So again, that kind of charred barrel is perfect because you're getting loads of interaction with that kind of taking out those impurities from the new make, because it's getting quite a heavy maturation. I've just got foam bananas on it, which is something that I get in loads of the Distillers Edition, the Distillers Editions.
It's that charred cask probably, hey, because when you get that heavy char, you get characteristics that are quite synonymous with bourbon whiskey, which a banana, of course, is one of them. So it's probably that, right?
Yeah, and it's got all those kind of classic notes that you expect from that secondary maturation. Loads of kind of fruitcake, fruit leathers, are real. It's still got that honey sweetness. It's still got that kind of fresh cut fruit vibe, but it is kind of rounder around the edges. It's delicious. I've not drank this in about 5 years, I don't think. And it's back to being a firm favourite. Hopefully it's more than everyone's third favourite whiskey now.
Yeah. I think it's a belter, and I think the standard 15-year-old's a belter as well, to be honest. But one thing I want to pick up on there is interesting is 15 years old as the sort of standard release is relatively mature, but as you quite rightly point out, it's bloody cold there. Which is going to slow things down a lot, and not a great deal of fluctuation in seasonal temperature either, which is also not going to do much to speed up maturation. So you could say it's quite a patient whiskey, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the opposite of what you think of when you think of like a big American brick house, where you're talking temperature everywhere. Like,
heat it up, Chuck.
Yeah, we'll just pop that down there and forget about it. There's a really cool cask in one of the warehouses that's been sat there. It must be about 50 or 60 years old, and it's a genuinely someone's bought it and forgotten. It's just like it'll be there, and I don't know what happens with that kind of thing. But no, it is an extended maturation period, but we have the ability to do that because of that strength of the new make. Great single malt is a balance, and it has to have the character of where it's from, and it has to be balanced enough that it's enjoyable to drink or to mix or to pair with food, or whatever you're doing with it. And because it has such strong depth of character, you can push it a little bit further. Okay, this is being dominated by wood. Kyle has just said he'll take the cask. I'll make the arrangement.
Cool. We're great, Kyle. Well done. I'm glad someone stepped in and is going to take that cask. That's good. We were wondering what to do with it. Now, another question I've got for you is sulfury characteristics, which, as you say, it doesn't sound great. And in general, sulfur is considered to be like an off note in spirits, but there are certain distilleries that are famous for it. As you say, Dalwhinnie and the new make. Mortlach is another one, which we featured on Whiskey Me, that's famous for its sulfurous characteristic. But with Mortlach, when you mature it, it ends up being really meaty, right? And it's famous for that meaty. It's called the Beast of Dufton, right? So why do you think we're getting this sort of sweet, sweet, fruity, honeyed, quite soft and easy to drink? This is a whiskey that's not too challenging, I wouldn't say. In fact, it's probably one of the least challenging whiskies I know of. And I don't mean that in a sort of derogatory sense. I just mean there's so much to like about it. Why do you think Dalwhinnie sort of goes down this completely different pathway to Mortlach?
That's a good question, man. You didn't tell me about this one.
Sorry.
No, I think that Mortlach starts even heavier towards that chewy end from your 2.81 distillation. It is naturally heavier at the new make stage. It also goes through. Obviously, it's got a different cask layout, and
yeah.
Mortlach's renowned for being that kind of big European oak, chewy guy. And another one that everyone forgets, that is, I don't think a million miles away from this, Glenkinchie.
Yeah.
Because everyone thinks Glenkinchie is the low end. It's light, it's pretty, it's grassy, and the reality is that it's not. It's pretty chewy and it's pretty robust. And I
don't think Glenkinchie is a million miles from Dalwhinnie either, and that's another one we featured recently. It is a good dram, that. And I think it's actually, when I visited Glenkinchie and I tasted it, I was a bit disappointed. I was like, oh, I wanted this to be like dramatically different to the whiskies that I know in like Speyside and everything, but there's not so much that there, because it's not got that archetype super lightness that lowlands are supposed to have.
Yeah, and it's just I don't know. I think there must be a lot of it. Obviously, these malt whiskies are brilliant in their own right, but there's got to be a lot of the characteristic that blenders are looking for as well. And it has to come into it, because not everything can be light and grassy. Glenkinchie's a cracking example of. It's a great single malt whiskey. It's not, like you say, not synonymous with the flavour profile that you expect from the lowlands, but it is a pretty strong identity. For a single malt. We've got a cracking suggestion there from Colin Dunn.
Colin Dunn, who's a fan favourite. He's been on the Whiskey Me live stream before, and we'll be getting him. Don't worry, Colin. We should try to bring him in now. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? Though we'd never end if we did that. It would just go on forever until the one final person viewing this finally logs off, and we'll go, okay, this is just a Zoom call between three mates now. Erv, what? Yes. So because you are, like you say, you're kind of taking a more modernist approach to Scotch whiskey, and a lot of what you do is looking at new ways to serve whiskey, especially mixing it. So have you got any suggestions of how we might, how your top tips for mixing malt whiskey in general, and how we might mix a malt like Dalwhinnie?
Yes.
Good. And you'll have to tune in next week to find out.
The first cliffhanger ever. Then we'll just stop watching.
Yeah.
No, I think the thing that you do with single malt whiskies is versus blends is you are sympathetic to the flavor profiles in it, and also the stories behind it, the communities behind it, because these are a product of a town, of a village, of a place, and of people. And great bartenders do their research into this. 90% of great single malt whiskey cocktails start in a glass like this, which pains me to say it a little bit, but we know as we taste, we analyze, we figure out what it makes us feel and what we experience from it, and then we build a drink from it. And single malts are spiky, so it's really easy to identify, right, from this, I get the minute that you cut into an orange, I get a baked apple pie, and I get kind of incredible fruit leather. That is 3 instantly inspiring flavor notes that you can mix with it. I made a drink with this earlier, which is, well, I mean, I'm going to say it's brilliant because nobody in life.
We'll be the judge of that. Oh no, wait a second.
Here, hold the line, callers.
Right.
Right. So this, I have pre-bottled it because, for 2 reasons. It's great because you can make it in batch, because there is this kind of perception that cocktails are hard and fidgety, and when you order them at a bar, you're going to be waiting 10 minutes. And nowadays, this isn't really the case. And if I can do it at home, anyone can. So this is a twist on a hot toddy, which I think would be the perfect drink to enjoy if you're at Dalwhinnie, because it's got that winter warmer, it's spice, all the flavor notes in it are very, very, very kind of synonymous. Apparently I'm someone's cracking me up, which is good. I'm cracking someone up.
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas. He can read, by the way. Like, I'll put that one up on the we'll just leave that there for a bit.
Yeah. But no, it has got this kind of honeyed texture. It's got the citrus fruit note, and it's got that spice in it. Fortunately, I live in the tropics of the southern Western Highlands, so I don't have to have it warm. So I've done it cold. And interesting, I was speaking to someone the other day, Ali, who said that a cold hot toddy is basically penicillin, which I thought was quite an interesting point.
Yeah, that's a good point. So penicillin, which is a sort of modern classic cocktail. Yeah, which is it's basically like a whiskey sour with a smoky whiskey float, right?
And ginger.
Ginger, yeah.
But it's so this basically, I've taken that, and it's 3 ingredients, which is ace. You've got the Dalwhinnie. I used the 15 because I didn't have enough of the distillers, and then jasmine tea. So I find that when you're making a cold toddy, it doesn't really just work just to put cold water in. You need to try a little bit harder because you're not getting that experience from the spices coming up. That's got a bit of ginger in it. And then I just made a lemon sherbet, which is kind of like lemon zest, lemon juice, usually sugar. I used honey. And then the spice comes from Szechuan peppercorns.
Oh, yeah.
Which
lovely. Look at that. Everyone's jealous now. They're like, all I got was a pouch.
Yeah, and then this is a cracking garnish. This guy's called Winden Leaf that make like kind of liquid garnish. And this one smells like actually it was done for Talisker, but it's got a heavy amount of heather in it, which is incredible because it brings you to the place. Because so much of a hot toddy is that scent and that nose and that aroma. It's kind of like minimalist cold toddy.
Lovely. Actually, good time of year for a cold toddy, really. Because you still want all that sort of warming spice, but you don't want anything too hot, right? So it's perfect. As the days are getting warmer, but the evenings are still cool, warm yourself up with a cold springtime toddy.
Take that.
Oh dear. Right. Before this gets totally out of hand, has anyone got any questions for either myself or Irv? Here's one. Irv, are you going to do your own monthly subscription of whiskey cocktails?
Maybe, yeah. Well, maybe we can chat off.
Talk about that.
Short answer: no.
Oh dear. Someone's asking what the next pouch is. Can't reveal that, but what I will say is that all of our existing subscribers will be getting 2 pouches next month. So you're very, very lucky indeed. Because as I mentioned at the start of the chat, we're launching our World Whiskey subscription next month, and we're starting by giving all of our loyal members a free pouch, just so you get a taste of what things are going to be like. And then we welcome you to subscribe from there on, and you'll be receiving 2 pouches a month instead of 1. And you get to taste some new stuff from all over the world, some really exciting distilleries lined up.
That'd be great. I'm really looking, like, honestly, I use Whiskey Me just as like a good way to see other people's distilleries, and
Yeah.
I've thought it from the start, and it'd be great to get knowledge of other people's whiskey as well. So thanks.
Yeah, no, it's cool. We've got some really good distilleries lined up. I mean, we America, European distilleries, English whiskey distilleries as well. So it's pretty exciting. And to answer that question, will you get 2 live tastings? Yes, I'm going to be working twice as hard every single month, because we'll be doing a live tasting of both the world whiskey and the Scotch single malt whiskey every single month. Yeah, if we carry on adding too many products, it'll just be live tastings every single night. But I think 2's enough for now.
If you like, I'll come on and I can show you my awesome knowledge of other world whiskies.
Well, I'm gonna have to get some knowledge as well. We'll just kind of muse along and go, I wonder, well, no, this, do you know anything about this one? No, I don't. Tastes good though, doesn't it? No, we will be. It's gonna be fun because we'll be getting international guests in, talking about these whiskies. And yeah, it's we've been going 3.5 years now, and it seems like it's about time we launched another product. It's always only ever been one product, so it's super exciting. The costs, by the way, will be the same as the Scotch single malt whiskey. So depending on whether you subscribe annually or monthly, it's £7, £7.95 a month. So yeah, super exciting to get everyone's feedback and to start tasting whiskies from outside of Scotland as well. So yeah, it's gonna be cool. Irv, thanks for your time, man. Appreciate you coming on. We definitely got to do this more often.
Yeah.
And be nice to get a drink face to face, like not face to face like this, but in a bar at some point.
It doesn't seem that far away. Anytime you need anyone to look ahead for any of our distilleries, you know where to find me. Yeah, quite a lot of the other ones as well. We have more videos for as well, so it'd be cool to do some more of that. So.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we don't normally. This has been by far and away the most technologically ambitious tasting we've done so far, and it was really only clicking play on a couple of videos. But we didn't want to break it, so it went well. I think. I don't know. I wasn't on the receiving end of this stream. Perhaps we've just been talking to ourselves. Look, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it, and thank you everyone for coming and joining the tasting. Feel free to continue to leave comments and like and share and all those wonderful things that you do. And we will be back next month with not 1 but 2 tastings for you, and the whole sort of brand new Whiskey Me brand and website and members area. So you can look forward to that, and we'll give you more information in the email and on social media. So keep checking that stuff too. Ervin, thanks, mate.
Thanks, man.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.